everything so much easier. Well, it's all. Good evening, welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is the Thursday, September 19th, 2024 City Council meeting for the four-time All-Star Community and the current National Community of the Year by Playmaker Magazine. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jensen?
Here.
Mr. Harper?
Here.
Mr. Miskman?
Here.
Mayor Abu-Wassili?
Here.
Ms. Menser? Mr. Brandt?
Here.
Mr. Sterned?
Here. Thank you. This time we have a moment of silence. Thank you. First on the agenda, we have two proclamations. The first one is for Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and we have Jenna with Foundation 2 here to accept it. Please come forward, and I've asked Deputy Mayor Pro Tem to read the proclamation.
Whereas September is known globally as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and during this month, the City of Marion and Foundation 2 Crisis Services and the Lynn County Mental Health Access Center encourages prominent visibility of mental health concerns and suicide prevention services in our community to destigmatize the conversation and connect people with appropriate support services. And whereas, according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, suicide is the second leading cause of death among individuals between the ages of 10 and 24 in the United States. And whereas every suicide death has a widespread effect in our community, impacting countless family, friends, coworkers, neighbors, and community members. And whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, and resident shares the burden of suicide prevention and has a responsibility to promote mental wellness. And whereas we encourage all residents to take the time to understand the importance of suicide prevention education and recognize that taking care of ourselves and others includes taking care of mental health. Now, therefore, I, Gage Miskimen, on behalf of Nicholas Abu-Wassili, Mayor of the City of Marion, Iowa, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2024 as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month in the City of Marion, Iowa, and urge all residents and agencies to recognize the importance of promoting mental health and suicide prevention and their role in changing and saving lives. There you go. Say anything?
Sure, I will.
Absolutely.
Oh, did you want to get a picture? Okay. Thank you very much. Earlier this month, we held a Light the Night at our building, and we honored about 120 individuals who their names were submitted by their loved ones who had died by suicide, and they were overwhelmingly male. So I know there's a lot of men in this room. About 95% of those names were men. So it is so important that we continue those conversations and continue it to be a community conversation, because it will change and save lives. So we appreciate this. Thank you.
Second proclamation is for National Hispanic Heritage Month, and we have Monica Vallejo here to accept the proclamation. Intact. How are you? Nice to see you. Welcome. Whereas National Hispanic Heritage Month is an official national celebration of Hispanic and Latino heritage in America. Whereas National Hispanic Heritage Month is an opportunity to celebrate the rich cultural traditions and honor the positive achievements of the Hispanic and Latino American community in our nation, state, and city. Whereas Hispanics and Latinos are the largest ethnic minority group in the United States and contribute to our nation in important ways, including in business, industry, government, agriculture, education, the sciences, the arts, the armed forces, and community service. Whereas Marion residents of Hispanic and Latino ancestry are part of a rich and diverse cultural fabric in our city and share the same dreams, values, common goals, and love of community with all other residents. And whereas Marion residents of Hispanic and Latino ancestry are contributing to shaping a bright future for our city and helping to make it the best place to live, raise a family, and grow a business. Now therefore, I, Nicholas Abu-Wasili, Mayor of the City of Marion, Iowa, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2024 as National Hispanic Heritage Month in the City of Marion and encourage all residents to embrace and celebrate diversity in our community, including the Hispanic and Latino heritage and the many positive achievements and contributions of Hispanics and Latinos to our city, state, and nation. We'll get a picture here.
Buenas tardes y muchas gracias. Thank you so much and good afternoon. For me, it's a privilege to receive this proclamation to recognize the Hispanic Heritage Month around the whole national. Recognize the Latinos community in this area is important because it's our contribution to the city, to the community. Recognize the diversity and the inclusion in the community is important. So thank you so much for recognize our reach and contribution to our community. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tam. Okay, next we have a presentation regarding Marion Urban Reforestation Master Plan. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have our city arborist, Mike Simprich, here to introduce our consultant for this project. We did a formal presentation last Thursday of for the reforestation plan, and I'll hand it over to Mike to introduce.
Hi, Mike.
Thank you very much. Good evening, council. I'd like to thank you for some time on this agenda to present the Marion Urban Reforestation Master Plan. Steering committee for this group or for this project met in July of 2023 for the first time to begin putting things together. There's a tremendous amount of research and analysis that went into this project to bring it to full conclusion. And tonight we will have David Stokes with JBC Landscape Architects here to present kind of a summary and overview of the plan and its findings and the results. He will discuss some of the methodology of how we came to those things and discuss some of the recommendations and things that will come forward and how that plan will be used as we work through the length of it. The plan itself overall is going to be much of a guide and a tool for tree board and city staff to prioritize reforestation over the next 10 years in Marion. It will also provide us with some guidance on how to supplement the costs of those efforts with grant funding and partnerships. And then it will also provide some evaluation timelines and approaches for staffing and equipment needs that may come up as we expand our workload. I'm very excited to see this at council level. It's been a work of love, and I'm biased to say that I'd like to see more trees go into Marion, but I think we're on the right path, and I think this plan will get us there. And so with that, I'll bring Dave up here.
Thank you. Welcome, Dave.
Yeah, good evening and council members, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about this. I know you've got a large agenda tonight, so I'm going to try to be brief as possible. It's difficult to summarize a years worth of planning in a 15-minute increment. So I'll try to fit within that and be respectful of time. First of all, so my name is David Stokes. I'm with JBC Landscape Architects. I am owner and managing principal of JBC. I'm also a licensed landscape architect in over 25 states, including Iowa. And I was very blessed and felt very fortunate to be selected to work on this project because I love this community. I just want to acknowledge contributors to the plan. In the city, we're talking, thank you. Do I advance it by the up and down button? Okay, very good. The Forestry Division, Mike and his staff, Parks and Rec with Seth and Brent. Brent's here. I want to thank GIS staff and planning staff. They helped provide us data at the very beginning of the project. The tree board, the steering committee that was formed because of this project, and of course, the residents who came out and showed out for the public engagement sessions. So I'm just going to briefly share a timeline with you. Obviously, August of 2020 was the derecho. Immediately after that, cleanup and recovery began. Fast forward to a little over 2 years, the city put together a solicitation, a call for proposals to develop this plan. And so during that process, we were fortunate enough to be selected. And then we went into data gathering mode right away in about April, May of last year, collecting information from the city departments and such. During that process, the steering committee was formed for this project. And like Mike said, we officially started in July with the kickoff meeting and a goal-setting meeting with the steering committee. From that, we transitioned into the analysis and public input phase of the project. We held a public engagement session, open house session on November 1st out at Lau Park, where we had residents come out and give their feedback on exhibits out there. Then we had an online survey, public online survey, open for the entire month of November and had great response from that. Then we transitioned to what we would consider the framework plan of the process, kind of a beefed up outline of what the reforestation plan would become, an executive summary of sorts. And then it brings us to where we're at now, which is the final plan. So I just want to share with you goals that were extracted from this process. So ensuring that community-wide inclusion and participation in the development plan was happening, increasing obviously the city's overall canopy cover, tree canopy cover, providing education and resources for training and guidance related to replanting and reforestation. Recommendations for a diverse canopy or a diverse palette of tree species so that if a disease comes through, it doesn't wipe out everything. Identifying proper locations and tree species for those locations. So planting the right tree in the right place is very, very critical. Addressing the removal and cleanup of any sort of remaining storm damaged trees in those associated areas. Identifying phasing, timelines, checkpoints, and budgets for this whole initiative. And then obviously, as with any planning project we take on, addressing accessibility and equality throughout the plan. The locations, the priority locations that were teased out of this process were safe routes to schools and parks, planting in underserved areas, planting along trails and high-use walking paths, planting within street and road rights of way, along waterways and riparian areas, creeks and stream corridors throughout the community. In new developments, taking a look at the requirements for tree plantings in new developments. And then developments that exist that have no trees or very few trees in them. So the objectives for the plan were removing and cleaning up the remaining storm damaged trees in those areas, planting trees appropriately and properly, working together and developing partnerships with the city, developers, community members, organizations, other entities, including considerations for tree management and maintenance is going to be important. And then citywide planting. So not just focusing on hot spots, but looking at the community as a whole. And then education, educating the general public on the importance and value of trees. So through the process, in the analysis phase, we took the aerial photography that was given to us by the GIS department and developed an overlay and really tried to understand the loss of tree canopy cover. So the city lost approximately 36, almost 37% of its urban canopy, which is what this graphic is showing. It's a pretty significant loss. So I just want to, before I go into recommendations, I just want to talk a little bit about the structure of the plan. And so the plan was divided up into 4 separate parts. And the parts are analysis. Part 1 was analysis. Part 2 is phasing and recommendations. Part 3 was strategies and strategies for implementation. And then 4 was a series of appendices in the document. So let's go to recommendations. Because of the sheer volume and magnitude of this plan, we needed to develop a phased approach to this. So we looked at a 10-year phased plan, which includes the priorities for these replanting efforts. Talking about road corridors through the CDBG grant zones. And within the CDBG program that the city has secured funding from, there's criteria that needs to happen in terms of location for replanting of trees. The city gave us that information early on, and that's part of the plan. And that was kind of the highest priority right now because you already have that funding in place. High volume pedestrian and vehicular transportation corridors were another priority. Parks and natural areas that were hardest hit by the storm. Areas that previously had no trees or very few trees. And then areas that were prioritized through the public engagement and online public survey process. Other recommendations that happened within the document were resource and policy updates. In other words, providing recommendations on funding sources, grant programs and such. Staffing, obviously this is going to be a monstrous effort, and staffing is going to need to be considered in terms of expansion, as well as equipment to make those staffing hires more efficient. We looked at refinement and revision of landscape and tree ordinance, as well as community programs, recommending new programs. And then developing partnerships with local, regional, state, and national organizations in the form of governmental agencies, service organizations, businesses, corporations, institutions, and those entities. Because of the size of the community, and don't pay any attention to bed on structure, I don't know what that is. But we broke down the community into 6 study areas: north, northwest, central, southwest, south, and east. These have no political affiliations. There's no cultural affiliations with this. This is merely trying to make sense of how to make this plan, develop this plan with more manageable pieces. And so the designations or the dividers between these areas is typically a major road corridor that the residents can identify with. So reforestation phasing. So with each of those, in the previous slide, with each of those 6 study areas, you'll see on this plan, it's a little bit hard to see, but there's pink areas that have kind of a red dashed outline around them. Those are all the phased areas of the community where we're proposing reforestation. And so what we did with this plan then is took a deeper dive into each one of those 6 study areas and looked at it more on a street level, on a very micro level, and developed very detailed recommendations to phase these tree planting improvements in. Costs. So because of the sheer length of all of the corridors in the community, we needed to develop a set of rules. Now, these rules aren't just pulled out of thin air. These are rules and guidelines that have been developed by other communities, peer communities, similar size, similar population, similar situations. So our planning assumptions for the reforestation installation would be planting street trees every 40 feet on center, making sure that parks and natural areas have at least 25 trees per acre in terms of canopy cover, which it excludes special uses like sports fields, built areas, or landscape areas that are intentionally designed to not have trees, like prairie areas and oak savanna type areas in town. So the plan provides flexibility in all those scenarios. So what we looked at in terms of costs is what would it cost to have a contractor come in and do the work versus having the city do the work within, internally. And having a contractor come in, install and maintain the trees for up to 1 year is going to be about $1,000 per tree on average. To have the city do it, we had a breakdown. It's broken down kind of on the lower half of this slide. It totals about $258 per tree. So by doing it in-house, internally, with expanded staff and equipment, it's going to cost about a fourth of the cost of hiring a outside contractor to do it. Partnerships. So another part of the recommendations was partnerships. Within the document, so these are large umbrellas of categories within the document. Associated with each of these categories, whether it's businesses, service organizations, institutions, government agencies, or grants through public and private sources, we have an exhaustive list in the document. If the document is viewed digitally, there's live links to probably 75–80% of the list that we've developed. So it'll be a real-time resource. When you click on the link, it'll take you to that site and talk to you about, it'll tell you about that entity or that grant program. So it's a pretty valuable resource within the document. Strategies, strategies for implementation. Talking about park planning. So we developed a case study for Thomas Park, where we asked critical questions about the process for evaluating existing conditions in order to develop a plan and a strategy for planting trees in the hardest hit parks. So it's basically a template to follow for other parks within the community that were hard hit. And it gives you kind of a roadmap for how to address that in parks. Vehicle corridors, considerations for planting based on road classifications within town. So what size of tree, what species, the spacing of the trees, which we've developed as part of the cost. Public areas, so civic spaces, public open spaces, planting patterns that not only enhance the safety of its users, but the comfort of its users. And then last but not least, private property. Developing scenarios on where residents can plant trees on their private property, giving them guidelines and helping them with that. Because there's a lot of folks out there that want to plant a tree but don't know where to plant it or how to plant it or what to plant. And so this acts as a resource for them. In the strategies portion of the document, this is just a little snapshot of what's in that part of the document. You'd notice all these rendered axon illustrations. There's tons of these illustrations within the document that talk about almost every scenario possible within town here. So it's a true visual roadmap as to how to plant within the community. Lastly, the appendices. So there's a tree atlas in there. The tree atlas is basically a graphic form of the city's approved tree species. And what it does is it identifies attributes. You can see the little thumbnail images of the trees. So it gives you the height of the tree, the width of the tree, the growth pattern, whether it's resistant to disease, whether it's salt tolerant, the fall color, whether it's a fruiting tree, whether it's fruit bearing, nut bearing, seed bearing, all those, all those criteria are listed in there and graphically shown for ease of use to the resident. So considerations for meeting tree needs, it gives tree names, images, the benefits of the trees, and special conditions. The second part of the appendices is the public engagement piece. This shares with you all the materials that were shared during that public engagement session, and then a summary of the feedback that we received from the general public at that meeting. And then last, survey findings. So the online survey that we had out for a full month, we had 507 respondents. It was pretty amazing. For a community this size to have 500 responses is really quite amazing. And what we do in there is give you the raw data. We inform you of what questions were asked in that survey, and then we put it all in a graphic form, like these infographics that make it easy to understand how the public responded to those questions. I think that's all I have for right now. I guess what we could do is open it up for questions or discussion.
Well, since our work session, I had an opportunity to talk, well, this morning with Seth, because I had some questions about cost per tree breakdown. You know, what is forestry's recommendation to proceed through the sequence of activities in terms of either it being contracted versus brought in-house with appropriate level of staffing augmentation. And I did just, I became overly interested in page 61 of the document, which delineated the phasing and the costing. And fully contracted, it's 38 million versus 11 million if we attack this 10-year plan with our own resources. And but I think in my discussion with Seth and Mike, I've got to tell you, I thought this was a highly comprehensive study. So, and it gives you the roadmap that you can execute against, and it gives you a framework that as conditions in town change, or heaven forbid, we suffer another severe windstorm and have to rethink this plan gives you a starting point, and you can amend the out years as necessary. So my fundamental concerns about this plan were responded to, and I just really appreciate its comprehensive nature and the roadmap that it gives to you. So that's comment, no real question. Thanks.
I think I would comment in saying, so this will be a living document, and because we all know that costs change over time, this is just kind of putting our best foot forward in terms of what escalation is and all that good stuff. But I think it would be beneficial to revisit the plan 7 to 8 years from now, just shy of the 10-year period that we've laid out for it, just to start to measure how successful it's been and where adjustments may need to be had within the document. So, and we've talked about that a little bit too.
Yeah, that would be my comment as well. There was a lot of discussion through development just as to whether we could hit these goals and how much more staffing would be required to hit goals, and whether or not bold was the way to go with it. I think it gives an idea of what we want to aim for. And the DNR canopy recommendation is around 30%. Whether we get there in 10 years or 30 years doesn't make a lot of difference. But the fact that it takes about 30 years for a tree to develop to the point that it provides those full benefits gives us a little emphasis to maybe keep that timeline shorter rather than longer, and go into it knowing that we need to be flexible and adaptable as we work through it.
Gage and then Steve.
It would be staff's recommendation to move forward with that too.
Just out of curiosity, I was wondering how you guys strategize in addressing the accessibility inequality, because I think it's a really important piece. I think historically in the United States, post-disaster, post-big development, low to moderate income neighborhoods kind of see less of like tree replanting and less canopy coverage. So I was wondering how you guys strategize that, like here in our community.
I don't know if we strategized about it, but I think breaking it down into the study areas allowed us to dive in with a more intense microscope into those areas and understand some of those more underserved neighborhoods. Knowing full well that, you know, if you have areas kind of that are out in the periphery that are of a higher income demographic versus some of the neighborhoods that are closer to the core, those are the areas that kind of actually got devastated the most
Sure.
in our study. So it just kind of teased itself out naturally that way. So I don't think we strategized about it. I think the data kind of spoke for itself and made the whole process very honest and open and transparent that way. What was the second question you had?
I do have a second question. I was curious what areas were prioritized through the public engagement piece, and did that like differ from the areas that you guys were already kind of focusing on anyways?
No,
Nah,
it was pretty synonymous with each other.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
Cool. I appreciate that. Thanks.
yeah.
Okay, city manager has a comment to
Yes,
this
thank
question.
you. Yes,
Yeah,
thank you,
and then
Mayor.
we'll go
To Councilman Miskman's first question. With any plan that Team Marion gets approval from the council, that becomes our plan of attack when planning out our work functions and working on establishing the budget. So just like the comp plan, this is no different than that. And to your question about how do we start identifying and working on those more impacted areas, if you recall, Chief Fagan had presented probably within the last year those impacted areas in our community using GIS. So as staff starts, you know, once council accepts this and approves it, this becomes our roadmap. So as the staff starts working on preparing the different budget recommendations, that will be utilized to, along with GIS and the rest of our team, to start prioritizing and bringing to council the recommended priority areas so that we can make sure that we're hitting that mark and that we are being comprehensive and very inclusive and understanding that and sensitive to our community and the needs of the different neighborhoods that were impacted.
Thanks for that context, Ron.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yeah, first I agree with Grant's comment that this is absolutely essential and terrific to have on a going forward basis. I think having a 10-year plan is fantastic, and I appreciate everybody's effort that went into it. David, one question for you.
Yeah.
Have you been involved in presenting or having this big of a plan anytime in the past? And if you have, what are some words of wisdom on how it turned out?
Yeah, so over the last 15 years, I've been working actually with Iowa State University in the Iowa Department of Transportation to assist small communities, underserved communities with master planning processes. Now you think smaller communities, smaller projects, but a lot of these communities have larger projects within their you know, incorporated area. And the word of advice I would take, or at least express to you all, is don't let the plan get stale. It should be revisited 7 to 8 years from now. And Mike and I have discussed this as well. I think the quicker you can get trees in the ground, the more meaningful the impact will be 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now. So I think the more you can build momentum the first 2-3 years, it's more likely to continue forward. I think the other thing I would add is, so the document is the deliverable that we were responsible for and contracted to do. There's a lot of background information in the document. There's a lot of graphics. There's a lot of spreadsheets. All of that information is now going to be property of the city that we will actually hand over. those are items that are already done. And what they can do is they can be helpful in supporting grant applications. And so it becomes an exercise in writing a meaningful story and a narrative behind these grant programs. All the supporting information is already there for you and that we're going to provide. So I know you've got the CDBG grant. Don't rest on that. Go after more grants and see where the chips fall. And I think you'll find that because you have a well thought out plan under a planning process, those grant organizers and those grant evaluators are going to say, wow, these guys have their act together. They've gone through a planning process. They've got an organized document here. They've got great data. Boy, they're ready. They're shovel ready. So those are the plans that are going to be more apt to be funded in a quick fashion. And these grant funding entities love to see long-range projects, which is what you have here. So those are my words of wisdom in working with communities on even larger and medium-sized projects.
Is there a target or a rough estimate of what we should expect from grant funding or, ideally? I mean, I wouldn't hold you to it. I'm just like, what's a sort of a general is there,
Well, so I look at this. Cedar Rapids applied, and I can't remember what the program was under, and I can look that up and get you the information. But like they secured a $6 million grant.
Right.
Now, granted, their population is much larger, and the breadth in the area that just in square miles of their community is larger, but $6 million is a serious chunk of change, and it was through a state agency. So, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to secure, $1.5 million, $2 million grants at a time. But you have to demonstrate that you've gone through a planning process, which is what you've done here.
Sure.
And if the plan is adopted, that just puts more weight and more magnitude on that study, and it's going to affect the evaluators of that grant program and then the people that award those grant monies.
Okay, Steve had something.
Yeah, I think one more thing. I think it's part of the education to borrow from something that Mike told me a few years ago. I think something we should make sure we have in our Marion Messenger and maybe even a couple of billboards down the road is to use one of Mike's sayings. And it's stuck in my head all this time. And it was the best time to have planted a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today.
Yes.
That is stuck in my head from years ago. So I think if people start really, really thinking how simple that concept is, it may, and just with a little nudging, I think we might get more trees planted.
For sure.
Good luck.
One other piece of advice is if you have any public property of any size that's being underutilized right now, start thinking about repurposing that for a tree bank. Growing trees yourself, so you don't have to. You can purchase them as little whips, and get them to a certain size, and then plant them instead of paying exorbitantly much larger costs for those trees.
Awesome. What's the next step?
Once the document's adopted, we'll be looking at trying to start scheduling and prioritizing the phases out of, or the sections of town or areas of town out of phase 1 that we'd like to install trees next spring. And then I think the first item coming that would be budgetary related would be a request for another full-time staff member to help with just maintenance work.
And I do want to address
ahead,
too, that this is something that we're going to be touching daily and every year when we review these items, we'll be coming back to council at different points with decision points, and also looking at the plan and how we kind of evaluate year by year. So this is something that we're going to use as a resource, and you'll see pieces of it when it comes to the budget time, but also throughout the year as we're looking to implement these strategies. The other thing I wanted to just really note on the grants too is that this is a great opportunity to talk about public engagement and partnerships throughout the community. We work really well with Trees Forever and Monarch Research, and these are opportunities where we can really look at, hey, you know, within this plan, there's opportunities here to even or to reach higher at these opportunities. So
Awesome. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the time.
The next item is a public forum. We have two public forums on the agenda. The first one is for topics that are listed on the agenda but not part of a public hearing. The second one is at the end of the meeting for all other topics. We do have rules of procedure for public forums and ask that people please abide by these rules. We ask anyone addressing council to please complete a yellow card that's found at the end of the table. And please turn that into the city clerk when you come forward to speak. Please do not approach the dais. If you have handouts, please submit them to the city clerk for distribution to the council. You're encouraged to state your name and any group that you may be affiliated with. All persons wishing to speak have a 5-minute time limit to make their comments. Please do not engage in conduct or speech that is imminently threatening to any person or which incites violence or which is obscene. Please avoid repeating comments or points made by others who were speaking on the same topic. Please do not disparage any individual person. Please keep your comments to the issue at hand. Speakers and people attending the meeting are asked not to engage in conduct that disrupts the orderly progress of the meeting or engage in speech or conduct which interferes with others' ability to participate in the meeting, and failure to adhere to the guidelines may result in removal from the meeting. Appreciate everyone's cooperation and adhering to these rules. So at this time, the public forum is now open for comments on any topic that is on the agenda but not part of a public hearing. If your comments are part of an item that has a public hearing, there will be time to address the council at that time. Please come forward if you are here to address the council on any topic that is on the agenda but not part of a public hearing.
Hello, Mayor and
Welcome.
Council. I'm John Georgian, the owner of Georgian Auto in Manchester. I'm here to request relief from the moratorium on the property located at 5800 Linear Ave. I've a deal going with the current owner and myself, unknown to us. The property is under the current moratorium. This deal may very well fall apart if I can't use it for the intended purpose. Without a for sure approval that I'll be able to run an automotive shop in it. The zoning is the same as other automotive repair shops in the area, which I believe is BR. With that being said, I'm not the average repair shop. My current location is spotless. It's in the middle of the downtown district in Manchester, Iowa, where we've had nothing but praise and how we have raised the standard of automotive repair. I'd like to bring that to Marion. We plan on doing a total remodel of the property with significant investments to make the property stand out in a positive way and not to look like a rundown building like it currently is. We plan on having a staff of between 15 and 20 when we're all said and done, offering top pay and a full benefit package. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council or anybody may have when this comes up on the agenda, and I appreciate your time.
Okay, so if anyone has questions, can they ask them now? City Attorney?
At this point in time, because it is an agenda item, you could, but generally my recommendation would be to wait until it comes up in discussion, and then you could ask him to return to the podium.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your cooperation.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else to address council on any item that is on the agenda but not part of a public hearing? Please come forward. Okay, seeing that no one's coming forward, we'll close this part of the meeting and proceed to the consent agenda. Mr. Brandt.
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as follows. Items A1 through D8, resolutions 32063 through 32083.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented, including items A1 through D8, resolution 32063 through 32083. Discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. For the next section, I will turn over the meeting to the Deputy Mayor Pro Tem.
Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve the consent agenda with Mayor Abalosly's abstention as follows. This will be items D1 through D4, resolutions 32084 through 32087.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda with the mayor's abstention as follows. Items D1 through D4, resolutions 32084 through 32087. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. Seeing none, the motion is approved with one abstention. And I'll pass it back to the mayor.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 32088, adopting the well-presented Marion Urban Reforestation Master Plan.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 32088, adopting the Marion Urban Reforestation Master Plan. Discussion. I have a question. Is the utility, urban forestry utility, a part of the funding plan? Expected part of the funding plan?
Yeah, as we review everything year by year, that's something we'll analyze as far as the urban forestry utility fee. They did provide us a high level estimate as far as what they see in throughout the country as far as the best practice per capita, I believe is what they had in the document, but and I can follow up with that item, but it's really going to be based on the budget process and how we review and analyze and look at those strategics and determine where that fee needs to be. So it's not necessarily going to be dictated by the plan, but based on kind of our review and how we put together that budget with council.
Any other discussion? Yes.
I was just going to add to Seth's statement by saying as their budget requests come forward, as staff dive into that plan and kind of come forth with a proposal, we then would be plugging that into the model so that you have that full rate analysis in front of you as you make decisions as it relates to the urban forest fee.
Thanks for that clarification. Any other discussion, questions? All those in favor of approving resolution number 32088, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved.
Your Honor, I move to approve ordinance number 24-11, amending chapters 268 of the Marion Code of Ordinances regarding solid waste. This is our second consideration.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the second consideration of ordinance number 24-11, amending chapter 268 of the Marion Code of Ordinances regarding solid waste. Discussion? All those in favor of approving ordinance number 24-11, please say aye. All those opposed, say no. The motion is approved.
Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 24-13, amending section 313-4.4 of the Marion Code of Ordinances regarding special speed restrictions, and this is our initial consideration.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 24-13, amending section 313-4.4 of the Code of Ordinances regarding special speed restrictions. Discussion. All those in favor of approving ordinance number 24-13, say aye. All those opposed, say no. The motion is approved.
Mayor, I move to suspend the rules and proceed to the second consideration of ordinance number 24-13 regarding special speed restrictions.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to suspend the rules and proceed to the second consideration of ordinance number 24-13. Any discussion on suspending the rules?
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so what is the necessity for suspending rules in this case?
Chief?
we were made aware that there's a section of, 8th Avenue that currently has a 25 mile per hour speed signs, but we don't have a carve out in our city ordinances for that street. So basically the ordinance has to say, a specific street. Otherwise it's 35 or 45, depending on the type of street. So this came about as part of a, citation that was issued. We discovered that we needed to backtrack or backfill the, city ordinances.
So in other words, it's just a prompt alignment of our ordinance to reflect our in force actions on the road.
Correct. And
Okay.
during the course of that, we realized that we probably should have something in it about the alleys as well, because that wasn't clear. So
Okay.
we added that. That was the second part of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion on suspending the rules? All those in favor of suspending the rules and proceeding to the second consideration of ordinance number 24-13, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved to suspend the rules.
Mayor, move to approve ordinance number 24-13, amending section 313-4.4 of the Marion Code of Ordinances regarding special speed restrictions. This will be the second consideration.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the second consideration of ordinance number 24-13. Any discussion on approving ordinance number 24-13 for the second consideration? Okay, all those in favor of approving ordinance number 24-13, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and proceed to the final consideration of ordinance number 24-13 regarding special speed restrictions.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to suspend the rules and proceed to the final consideration of ordinance number 24-13. Discussion. All those in favor of suspending the rules and proceeding to the third and final consideration, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved.
Your Honor, I move to approve ordinance number 24-13, amending section 313-4.4 of the Marion Code of Ordinances regarding special speed restrictions. This is our final consideration.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the final consideration of ordinance number 24-13, amending section 313-4.4 of the Code of Ordinances regarding special speed restrictions. Discussion. All those in favor of the final consideration of ordinance number 24-13, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved.
Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 24-12, approving a request to rezone property from BC or community business to PUD or planned unit development for property located at 1195 East Post Road. And this is Platinum Development, and this is our second consideration.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 24-12, approving the request to rezone property from community business to planned unit development for 1195 East Post Road. Any discussion? Yes.
I have a couple questions. My first question is, I forget if we talked about this last time. Do they have any plans for the current commercial space too that would be different than already existing? Or is that's staying there and they're putting the apartments behind?
Correct. The existing building and its uses with commercial office on the ground floor and apartments on the upper floor will stay the same. This will just be two additional fourplexes located behind it. And that'll come to the city council following the third reading at the next meeting.
And my second and last question, I don't know if you would have the answer to this, but I'm just curious, being that it's so tucked back there and the buffering is pretty strong on the one side with the trees. Do they have any plans for like how they're managing security back there? I know they talked a little bit about like lighting and stuff, and I know it's probably not required to show any plans for security or cameras, but I was curious if that was included in their design.
I've followed up with the developer after the public hearing a little bit, and he was gonna have some additional information following the third reading with the site development plan. He was hoping to have a few more items to address your concerns from the previous open public hearing.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So the site plan is what will come back to council?
Yeah, you'll see the site plan and building elevations at the first meeting in October.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor of approving the second consideration of ordinance number 24-12, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 32089, approving a street name change for portions of 10th Avenue between 35th Street and Highway 13 to Business Highway 151.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 32089, approving street name change portions of 10th Avenue between 35th Street and Highway 13 to Business Highway 151. Any discussion? And just for purposes of the members of the public, this is to just create consistency in the addresses along that entire road. So everyone has the same street address or same street name. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving resolution number 32089, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved.
Mayor, move to approve resolution number 32090, approving a waiver to ordinance 23-26 to permit motor vehicle service minor in BR regional business for property located at 5800 Lynn Area Avenue, Marion, Iowa. John Georgian.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 32090, approving the waiver to ordinance 23-26, permitting motor vehicle service minor in the BR district regional business for property located at 5800 Lanier Avenue. Discussion. Yes, Grant?
Yeah, I'm a little curious as to the enhancements to the property that are anticipated as part of this plan. And if it's possible for the applicant to address that question, I'd appreciate that.
Please come forward. Thank you.
We truly want to keep the building the outside structure pretty much identical to what it is. The low lie of the roof, the front canopy is going to come off, and I'd like to put a glass front on there and make that way more inviting, get rid of the whole fence rail. There'll be pavement completely around to the west and to the whole south side of that. That whole area will be paved, cleaned up, looking nice with maybe some aesthetic shrubbery in there, but nothing overgrown. The stuff to the north, I truthfully do not have a great need for it at the moment. I don't want to do anything with it. It's for expansion. If we would need additional parking, I would like to put it to the northeast corner and back. There's a road that runs to the east side of that property right now where I could put cars if I needed to. We're a very tidy shop. I hate dirtiness, to be quite honest with you, but my business does have some dirtiness with it. I'm not gonna deny it. But you can come to my current location any time of the day. I can make anybody in the shop and you'll walk out of there just like you walked in there. We run a tight ship. I think that property has a lot of potential for us. It's a corridor coming. We've got a lot of customers to the Monticello area, Cascade area that currently come up to Manchester. We've got people in the Coggin area that are coming through. So it's a great extension to what we have to offer already with our warranties of current customers that are traveling through that corridor. And I just think it'd be a great opportunity for us.
Yeah. Your Honor, I have one more question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so as I think you know, and I think staff has briefed you, we have a moratorium that impacts this property. What is the impact on your overall business plan if this approval were to be delayed and to let our moratorium process be concluded? How does that impact you from a business plan standpoint?
Well, we all know business likes speed, money likes speed. You can't let things sit there and stall out. So you got to have a timeline and be punctual about it. With that being said, I'm already 2 months-ish behind schedule of what we already had. I hope to be up and operational and they're already at this time. That isn't the case. It's because we had to do this and work through it. And some of that's my own fault, not knowing it was under a moratorium. And I don't really have anything against the moratorium. I like what it stands for. I like what you are doing in Marion as a group. That's why I'm coming to Marion. I would be very hard pressed, any kind of ordinances or anything you throw at me, we aren't already doing. And I know that's easy to stand here and say that. That's why I welcome any one of you to come look at our shop right now. I mean, you can eat off the floors. We wash it all the time. And we've been there for, in the downtown district of Manchester, over 15 years, had 0 complaints. I mean, bar none. And we're right in the downtown district. And that was a refurbished building that we bought there and redid it. It was a lumberyard that was going in dismay. And we rebuilt it and repurposed it and use it. And it's a viable part of the community as it is now. So if that answered your question.
Yeah, that's helpful context. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Councilmember Brandt and then Jensen.
Do you have any renderings of what you're proposing to do to the building?
I did not. The biggest thing for myself is ceiling height with elevation of raising cars. It's a blank palette when I go in there. So it's all gonna be all highlighted hoists out. Where them garage doors are on the side, a couple of them might have to be moved. And if they have to be moved, they will be replaced. Probably put new modern glass doors in there for it to make it stand out, put lighting all the way around the building. I mean, it'll look like a different building, tenfold. I did want to have renderings done already, but being this, not knowing if I was going to have the opportunity to even get in there, it's hard to outlay cash to do that on a whim. It's a pole building. It's square, it's solid. It's got a great location. There's a lot of traffic by there. And you know, I know what was over there. We all know what was over on that side years ago. I don't want no part of that. You know, years ago, I wouldn't even been over there. But when we commute to Cedar Rapids area, Marion area, we drive by there all the time. I've been looking at that building for 10 years, thinking that's the building I want. That's where I want to expand. I've looked at several locations in Hiawatha. I've got a couple offerings in Cedar Rapids for the second location, and none of them really feel right, to be quite honest with you. They'll suffice, but it's just not what we want. It's not us. That can be a diamond. I mean, we can make that shine and it can be the center of that spot, and it will be if I own it.
I mean, I don't know if everybody else recalls, but we did certainly receive some very positive letters of support from community leaders in Manchester. And I've been in Manchester a number of times, love the city, and I think you do a nice job with your location.
Thank you.
But from my standpoint, I believe, as we've done already in the past with other decisions that we made in the past several months, that we need to continue to let the comp plan get done, do its work, and then we're ready to make a decision on that. So not that my decision to vote against this is a decision against you or your business. It's really a decision to say I support the comp plan and letting the comp plan work out. So hope you understand that.
Sorry. And truthfully, the comp plan was supposed to be done here in November, correct? And I'm told there's going to be an extension to that or potentially an extension. So I don't have any timeline to even say, hey, I can buy this and I can be in there in 8 months. I can be in there in a year. If I could get some definitiveness or some definition, not that big of a deal, but it's hard to go to a lender and say, hey, I think I can do this, you know, or buy a building that doesn't fit my building model at all. And like I said, that's what it's for. I don't know what you guys envision there, you know, as a city of council. I don't think we're a necessity business. I mean, everyone in this room uses us as a service.
Right.
You know, during the pandemic, we were operational. You know, we're a necessity. The problem is bad operators made us look bad over the years. And quite honestly, it irritates the hell out of me. But here I am. So we don't do that. I know it's easy for me to say. You know, all I can say is come look at what we got. And if we got to wait for, you know, to finish the comp plan, it would sure be nice to have some definitiveness of when that is that we can take to the bank and say, okay, X number of days, we're going to do that. And I understand that's that's a tough spot as well.
Thank you.
You have another question, Will?
For Dave, are there any zoning requirements or anything in place that would make, what am I trying to ask? Like the fencing or shrubberies or whatnot that would have to be in place to shield the building from the street, from the main street landscaping, yeah.
No, I
Or
think I understand the
fencing.
question. We only have one standard specific to auto repair shops that are minor, not the auto body shops, and I'll just read it. So all repair operations shall be shall not store or park any vehicle on site for longer than 5 business days. Doesn't require the screening, but it just allows that.
So nothing.
A circulation of cars, you're not having like a quality auto where obviously you're waiting for parts or pieces, whatnot. Cars may sit for a month depending on the need. So this is a 5-day turnaround.
Sure.
I mean, at this point, I'm kind of the same opinion as Councilmember Jensen in that, this is really not a statement on the type of business or the quality of your business or we really appreciate that you want to bring a business to Marion. It's not surprising because, we've created an environment where businesses want to be here, and that's really great. What we're looking at as a city is 20 years from now, what's the city going to look like? And we have these major thoroughfares, these major entryways, front doors to the community. And that's part of the concern is we're undergoing the comprehensive plan review right now to try to come to some consensus and big picture view of what these corridors will be, what types of businesses will be in these corridors, what the entryways to our city, what kind of businesses will be there. Not that we don't want any particular business here, but where does that business most appropriate? And so again, it's not at all a statement on you or your business or your quality of your work or the quality of your operation. I fully believe what you said. And we appreciate you wanting to bring a business here, but we're in the middle of this planning process because we're planning for 20 and 30 and 40 years from now. We want to look back and say we did it the right way in the community. We're so proud of how we shaped this community and how we built it. And part of that comprehensive plan over review may end up in some zoning changes or some, things that things may be changed a little bit. So that's sort of the hang up with approving something at this point. But, if the council wants to see renderings or anything, if that would change people's minds, I don't know, but go ahead.
Yeah, I highly respect and appreciate the comprehensive plan process, the moratorium process we've had. And I think if we were set to let this moratorium be completed and expired when it was originally kind of scheduled to, I would ask for the patience just to wait a couple months. But I think, between this being a local business, originally located not too far from here, and it's not a faceless or nameless company trying to come in, I think that goes a long way for me. And I think, the letters of support from community leaders goes a long way for me too. So I'm inclined to support this just on the location. You look around what surrounds that spot. I mean, this type of business to me is what I would envision there. And if it's, like I said, I'm inclined to support this, or if we're able to table the decision to maybe get some renderings or a list of commitments or whatnot, I'd be okay going that route too. But yeah, I'm in support of it. It's a local shop. I think we need some more good trustworthy auto repair shops in the area. So I appreciate that.
Great. Yeah. Dave, I think we had an item somewhat recently where my interest was there any way through our moratorium process we could accelerate examination of just this particular issue in that particular area. I don't have huge visibility into that work effort. And in the absence of that visibility and understanding, if we could accelerate consideration of this within the process, I'm somewhat aligned with Gage. Is my friends at Google here have a real nice online map, and we have Hupp Electric and Carroll Construction on the west side of 13, and then we have immediately adjacent to the subject property, we have a DOT maintenance facility, and then we have Baxter's outdoor storage or whatever it is immediately to the north. And my question is, and so I am now getting to the question, Dave, do we foresee that our moratorium process would alter the conditions that Carroll Construction, Hupp Electric, DOT, or Baxter's outdoor storage are going to operate in that immediate area?
I don't believe we are far enough along on the comprehensive plan, specifically the land use map in this area. We have not fully looked at this section of the corridor on Highway 13. So I really cannot answer that question definitively.
Okay, and maybe my question was unfair, but my supposition or assumption at this point in time is the output of our work effort during the moratorium isn't going to alter Carroll Construction, Hupp Electric, Iowa DOT potentially.
That's not necessarily true. I mean, go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
Mayor touched on that. The land use, the moratorium puts a stop temporarily to let the comp plan play out. The comp plan is a long-term visionary document. So what it would do is help dictate the zoning regulations that would be then put in place to ensure that moving forward, anything that would redevelop in any one of those corridors to comply with that vision. So Hupp Electric or any of the other surrounding businesses that are in place would continue to exist until such time that they would switch under the new regulations, if there are new regulations as part of the comp plan. Correct.
So I guess my original interest of, is there any way to accelerate examination of this particular set of geography in our moratorium process? Can we accelerate that to at least give some certainty of determination to our applicant?
Yes, we could work with a consultant and hyper focus on an area or corridor or whatever it may be. But ultimately that is a draft plan, obviously not fully adopted. And I guess the second part of that question is if the council feels our standards are, I read the one design standard we had regarding the 5-day limit. So the council could direct our staff to let's look at our repair shop standards. And we'd obviously look at our comparables and look at best practices and what are those? I don't know if they are off the top of my head, but we could hyper focus on those and bring draft regulations forward that would say regulate this industry in general.
So staff could do, so the short answer to Grant's question is yes, we could. However, I think staff's position and recommendation would be that you avoid doing those spot issues because now you're jeopardizing the entire process of the comprehensive master plan.
So essentially I could draft code, we could adopt it, the comprehensive plan could come out 6 months later and say, this is actually the direction we recommend, and we ran kind of counter to the the outcome of the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, I fully understand Grant's request. I think the previous situation we had, that same question came up. And we decided not to do that spot analysis for the comp plan. So we decided not to carve one small section out and try to accelerate that. So I think, to be fair on what our previous decision was, I would certainly not support carving something out when previously we decided not to do that.
That was the Uptown.
Correct.
Yeah.
Same situation, same, not the same type of business, the same functionality and request.
No one else.
It was, I guess, to my point earlier, was anyone interested in considering tabling this one and coming back with, if we have renderings, if we have list of commitments or conditions, or is
Can I
everybody?
say something?
Go ahead, sir.
What do you guys see in the plan? You guys are the powers that be here. I mean, what do you see in the plan? I mean, to Grant's, when he was explaining, you look around the area, it is like industry. I don't know what you know, unless, into your comment, Ryan, yes, if somebody moves, yes, you could not grandfather them in and change the whole thing. You're talking decades. I mean, DOT isn't gonna move. Some of that other stuff ain't gonna move. I'm offering you a solution to clean this thing up and make it polished and look pristine on one of your main arteries, a stop sign where you're stopping and everybody looks at this thing with overgrown shrubs. I'm offering to get that out of your way today. I don't have any problem meeting any of your codes. I know you don't have your codes met. And that's where the problem comes. And to everybody's comment, everybody keeps saying, well, how do we get to there? How do we get to the end date? How do we, and I don't know the answer to that, but I do know you would not be disappointed with us. The fencing we would put up would be solid fencing. It wouldn't be mesh that looks like crap. It's just, we do things right. This deal could very well fall apart and then I'm off the table. Or it may be able to get the property owner to stick around and we can do something. But it's really unfair to the property owner, even more so than myself, when he's got a buyer at hand. It's a lot better a fish in the bucket than a pole in your hand, to be honest. So it's actually kind of tough for the property owner, more so than myself, although I am pining for my own interest, let's be honest. But that's about all I got to say. I don't want to sway you any way, shape or form, but I can't envision a world or a ordinance that I can't fit in and dominate. I can't envision it. I don't really care what you guys throw at me. Be truthful. I mean, I'm the dentist office of auto repair. I mean, we got snacks, we got hors d'oeuvres. You come in, you walk around, that's us. So it's your choice, but I'd be truthful. I don't know if we'll be able to keep the project together. That's just it. And this thing could sit there for another 6-8 months looking like it does.
Dave, go ahead.
I would just want to, I think a few questions came up on schedule. I just kind of want to clarify the schedule of moratorium and comprehensive plan. So we anticipate receiving a fairly complete draft of the comprehensive plan December of this year. This moratorium expires November 9th. There's been an indication to extend that out. So we'll have the comprehensive plan in December. Staff will be reviewing it throughout December, January. We'd be anticipating obviously public process during that time as well. And then we'd be anticipating a planning and zoning commission in February and a city council in March, April. And then begin the implementation phase of the recommendations from the comprehensive plan, which will be ongoing for the next 10 years, but then that'll be the council's, you'll then prioritize that kind of that work plan for the, through the comprehensive plan process, so.
Any other thoughts?
No, I'm
Otherwise, I would formally move to table this until at least the next meeting. If anyone would second that, I'm not sure.
For what reason?
Just to see if, like, I'd be curious if you could provide the renderings. I mean, you've talked about all the things that you'd meet, just to get a better understanding of what that looks like, I guess, visually.
I could do it if that's gonna be the, you know, the sweet spot that's gonna push you guys over the edge. I mean, I'm still gonna be an automotive industry. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. I mean, that's what it is, and everybody's concerned about having that elephant in the room. I'm still gonna be that is. It's just how you handle that correctly. Coming in here, you beautiful road, coming in your new turnabouts and all that crap, and you drive behind quality automotive. Nothing against them guys, they do great work. You got mesh streeting hanging up there, it looks like crap. I totally understand it. That's not how I operate. It's not how I would. I would have that in an ordinance, that if you have outside storage, you'd have either a steel fence or a, you know, that mesh stuff just looks crappy. It looks cheap. You'll never see that out of me. But I can do a rendering. I can do all that. But again, let's be honest, the elephant in the room. You either want an automotive shop there, you want a business that's paying taxes there, you want employment there, or you don't. So I'm not gonna go through all the work of doing that if it's a maybe and it's just a, you know, you're just what it is. And I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The important thing to understand is that the decision whether or not to allow this to go through is not about a particular business. It's for all businesses, for all operators, for all time. You could next year decide that you don't want to do this anymore, you know, and then someone else comes in and has that opportunity to operate the shop there. So it's much bigger picture. It's for all business operators for all time.
Totally understand. And I respect what you guys are doing. Otherwise I wouldn't be sitting in Marion talking to you.
Appreciate your.
The only thing that I'm asking for is you want the elephant, you don't want the elephant in some sort of a timeline so they can go to a bank with it. That's ultimately where I'm at. Otherwise, it's just smoke.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know how you do that.
So, I mean, we can go ahead and vote unless somebody's gonna, we have a motion. Well, I guess nobody's made the motion yet, but
Yeah,
To the table.
I would make
you
a
actually
motion.
make a motion?
I would
Okay.
make a motion to table resolution number 32090.
Is there a second or does it die for lack of a second?
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Okay, it's now been moved and seconded to table resolution 32090. All right, now discussion on tabling, whether or not to table it.
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm trying to assess in my own mind whether or not a rendering is material to the determination that's in front of us.
Right.
It seems like it's we're potentially imposing an extra expense that has a very uncertain outcome for the determination that is being asked here. I would just say that part of my leaning on this matter is just because I don't have the visibility on the comprehensive or the moratorium project, if you will. But I am sensitive to the fact that timing in business is everything. And there just seems to be a set of conditions here, environmentally, geographically, and that our applicant is trying to be responsive to. So I just don't know that asking for a delay on this for a rendering is material. I'd be interested in my colleagues' opinions on that. Is it informative for your decision making?
Steve.
Well, I totally believe that John can give us a presentation and a concept that is gonna look a lot better than the way it currently looks. So I completely believe that. I completely believe he's gonna run a very high-quality business. But that would not change my opinion on how I would vote. I think we also have one other individual not here tonight, so I think for that to move forward, you're gonna have at least 3 people here willing to, with a good presentation, be willing to support it for that table and to have any benefit. Like Grant, I'd not want him to spend that time and effort if there's not gonna be at least 3 votes out of this 6 that would say, that's a great presentation, let's move forward. So we, and I'm not there. I'm still with the believer to let the comp plan play out and do its job.
Anyone else discussion on whether or not the table? All right, we'll vote on that. All those in favor of tabling resolution number 32090, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
Okay, the noes have it, so we're back with the resolution on the floor. Any further discussion before we vote? All those in favor of approving resolution number 32090, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. No. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Jensen,
No.
Mr. Harper,
Yes.
Mr. Miskun,
Yes.
Mayor Abalosely,
No?
Mr. Brandt,
No.
Mr. Sterned.
No.
Okay, the noes have it. Motion is not approved. Next item is a public forum, which is a time set aside for comments from members of the public on any topic, whether or not it's on the agenda. If anyone's here to address council, please come forward. Thank you.
Me to go?
Yes.
I'm
please, go ahead.
Jeannie Matthews, and I had Rachel pull up a screenshot of our community, and I think you guys spoke about it earlier. I'm here to talk about 100% the gateway in our community. That's to the historic district of Pucker Street. And I'm here with my neighbors, and Wendy will introduce herself, but in the back of the room are Taylor and Rachel Sutton and my husband Paul, and also up here to the left of the red area, Jay and Marlene. We're all 100% together on this. We're very concerned about the fact that we've heard through the grapevine that the parking lot has been leased to the Hunland Construction and Darrell High for the apartment project. And I first want to make it really clear that we're all about the church being renovated and turned into apartments because we've looked at it for so long and it's such a disaster. So we're all about that. But we all live in this historic district and we've taken great pride and care in our houses. We finally have a neighborhood. We want to put up lights for Christmas. We have children there. And all of a sudden we found out that this parking lot is going to be turned into apartment parking. So we feel like maybe there's a little communication issue there. Maybe we're not understanding. So we want to talk about it with you all, with our neighbors, and find out what's happening. And we understand that legally, maybe Farmers State Bank has a right to do this. But we also understand that in 2021 or 2022, our neighborhood was rezoned to TR1, which is a traditional low-density single-family residential zone. And what that means is all those houses, a lot of them were converted from apartments, weren't cared for, and now they're all converted back to single-family homes. And I'm sure that you guys have all driven through there and can see that it's turning very nice. And I just think that we deserve some communication and some consideration over what's going to happen there. So we're asking you to reach out to us, or if we can get together with you all to find out what we can do about this. If we have to have this, then maybe we can put some rules around it with some parking, I don't know, some stalls, some leases, some type of lease agreement where there's some, I don't know, some consideration from the people that park there as to what's happening immediately around them in our neighborhood. So that's what I want to say. I just think it's important for us to step back and look at what's happening to the entryway of Pucker Street. So, thank you.
I'm tall. Hi, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Wendy Ludeman. I'm a teacher and I have two small children that attend school in the Marion area. And just as Jeannie just so well put, I most recently just joined a neighborhood and purchased a home directly across from the parking lot we're talking about. As a mom, moving into the neighborhood, we had wonderful neighbors. It's lovely, it's beautiful, it's quiet and safe. But as a mother, thinking about my children across the street from a busy, possibly public parking lot on my doorstep makes me very nervous. As a homeowner, our home is the red roof, so our driveway is directly across from the entrance to the parking lot, and we have seen occasional traffic cut across our driveway, you know, and cheat from street to street. And my concern as homeowner would be, how much public traffic are we going to see coming from a parking lot trying to cut across? And also just possibility of accidents. We all know intersections are most dangerous and parking lots are dangerous. Lots of intersections there, lots of danger possibilities. Also, property value would be an issue, honestly, as a homeowner. And then as a community member, what I've seen since moving there. So my understanding was that it was vacant, parking lot vacant. I did door knocking, asked questions. My husband and I were nervous about moving to the area. He thought it was a busy street. And what I've seen is very few cars in the parking lot. And mostly what I notice is kids learning to ride bikes, skateboards, scooters, people, you know, grandparents taking their grandchildren in there and learning to do things and play in there. And in my opinion, as a community, it would be better served as a green space than a parking lot going forward. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else to address council? So can we, will we have staff try to address these issues? We can't discuss it in the meeting here, correct? Because it's not on the agenda, but go ahead.
Staff will reach out and work with the neighbors and probably set up a meeting with Mr. High to talk about perhaps conditions that they, as the landlords of the Bell Tower lofts, could put into the lease agreement. I think Ms. Matthews mentioned that as an option. So staff can sit down and sort of, let's get those issues on the table, understand what the owner of Bell Tower lofts could do to incorporate into those lease agreements.
But that's a separate issue from this red.
Yeah,
rectangle here, right?
that parking lot is owned by Farmer State Bank. And so the arrangement between, so it's the arrangement with Bell Tower Lofts and Farmer State Bank, as the petitioners had noted, is that would be an arrangement with them to lease a few spaces in there to accommodate some of the tenant parking.
I didn't connect.
Yep. So that's why we would want to sit down with Mr. High. Kind of let's understand those issues and let's understand what they can incorporate into that, because the city does not control that lot. And that's under private ownership, and the arrangement between Mr. High and Conlon and Farmer State Bank, it's part of, it's going to be incorporated in the development agreement for Bell Tower Lofts as part of providing for parking on that site. But so we can reach out and have those conversations.
Okay. Anyone else address council? Please come forward. All right, we'll close this part of the meeting and proceed to council comments. Will?
No, the only thing I would note is just thank you to everyone who came to the parade last Saturday. It was fun to see the community come together in that way. And yeah, we actually made the candy last almost till the very end. So that was great.
We're buying more next year. Seth, thanks for, again, for filling in the gaps on the reforestation plan. I really appreciate the responsiveness on that. I think it is a great plan, and I'm anxious to see it start coming together.
I just say that everybody obviously has seen the automated collection containers around town by the gazillion. So the first time I saw them, I go, wow, you see them lined up and down the street at the curb. So great rollout. I think everybody's going to look forward to that change. Obviously a big event uptown on Saturday with Oktoberfest. So if you like a variety of beer, come on up.
And my only comment is I'm looking forward to the ribbon cutting next week for the public service building. So, yeah, hope to see everyone there. Thank you for joining us. Meeting is adjourned.